Hello, and welcome to The Confident Commit, the podcast for anyone who wants to join the conversation about delivering software better and faster.
If you're looking to build a trusted ship, tune in, let's confidently commit.
You're listening to episode 17 of season 2. I'm your host, Rob Zuber, CTO of CircleCI, industry leader in all things CI and CD. And today I'm joined by Avinash, CTO of Turo. And we're actually on our second attempt after all of my equipment collapsed in a sweltering heat wave here in the Bay Area, or sweltering for people who live in the Bay Area, I guess. I wonder how everyone else's computer works. But anyway, thanks for rejoining me, Avinash, to kick this off. And we talked a little bit about this last time. I tried and failed in the pre-call, so I'm going to let you pronounce your last name for everyone because I think it's a great lesson. So go for it.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Rob, for having me today. My name is Avinash Gangadharan. That's how my last name is pronounced. It's DH. Right. That's kind of, the challenging one. As Rob said, I'm leading engineering at Turo.
Well, excited to have you. This is not our first time even having a great conversation. Aside from trying in the past, we recorded a video that some of y'all might like to find online back when we did a short series on architecture, which was super, super cool. I learned a ton about the business then and about some of the really interesting technology challenges behind Turo. So excited to have you back. We're talking mostly about failure, learning from failure, but also developing an experimental mindset and really setting out to learn as quickly as possible. And I'm just super excited to hear about that in your space. And so we talk about that. I mean, I'll probably get you to give just 5 seconds or, whatever ish on what Turo does for anyone who doesn't know. Sure. And then the thing that I'm really interested to kick off with is, we live in a world of tech. We live in a world where, on the one hand, we expect everything to work perfectly every time. On the other hand, we kind of expect everything to break. But your tech is very much in kind of real world as well. Like I'm showing up, Indeed. I'm using a car, et cetera. So give us the quick background and then tell us a little bit about how you think about, reliability in that world.
Yeah. To start with, Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. Where one can book any car they want, wherever they want it, from a global community of trusted hosts. That's exactly how we, define what we are. Since the last time we talked, Rob, we've grown quite big. Today we do 1,400 makes and models on the platform in 8,000 cities, and we are in 4 countries. US, UK, Canada, and recently in France. So we've grown significantly since the last time we spoke. Talking about reliability, the crux of this podcast, I'm so glad that you're talking about, this topic. Yes, as you mentioned, we dealing with real objects in life, deal with certain challenges which are different from a reliability perspective. But being in this space, leading a marketplace, on an app, on a web browser out there, I feel that the fundamentals still remain the same for us. It's reliability comes from performance, security, how we keep our data, how we keep our customers' data secure, how performant we are as an experience on the app, on web, still is key for us in terms of reliability. What sets us apart, obviously, is these real world objects, objects that carry people to their destinations. And that adds a lot of challenges to the mix, So I'll be happy to talk about that, as we go forward, of course.
Yeah, well, as you're saying that, like it's so much like so many of the things that we built, and I think I've shared this on a previous episode, but I was recently on a road trip and we had some car troubles, and it was like my own car, but still that, wait a second, this is all based on software at this point, like the car itself, and what does that mean? And so one of the things that I think about that's kind of unique in this situation is around single points of failure, right? Like in a cloud system, I can create as many instances of a service as I want. One of them goes down, like people don't even know that it's down, sort of thing. Whereas this is my one car that I own and it's not working right now, or in your case, that's been made available to me. And so one thing is kind of that concept of single points of failure. Is there anything you uniquely think about in terms of resilience there? And then the second is like how you respond, right? So if anything ever does go wrong, because stuff always happens, a lot of that comes down to then, who helps me out? How do I feel? Do I feel taken care of in that particular instance where maybe something went wrong?
Right. The expectations of our customers start way much earlier than booking the car. But getting into a car and, getting onto their trip. The expectations start early on, and that's when the unique nature of the platform and the challenges that brings along with it starts for us. 1400 makes or models. People want the car of their choosing, and they want at a location which is convenient for them. Making these cars just available in that location, it requires a lot of work behind the scenes, of course. And then, making it safe for customers, both the guest and the host, also adds another challenge on top of it. For just managing this catalog, is in itself a huge technological challenge and a fun challenge to work with. It's a catalog that's a living catalog. New models come onto this catalog every year. Prices for cars depreciate every year. The price of the car is directly related at some level to the risk models, that help mitigate risk on the platform. So the choices, the expectations start early on. Now, each trip has its own characteristics, as you just mentioned. Each car is unique. Each guest is unique. Each host is unique, and the combination is even more unique: a guest, host, and a vehicle. And that uniqueness poses another challenge to the platform in terms of resiliency, trust, and a lot of other things, including risk and risk mitigation and whatnot. In my opinion, we try to solve this challenge by striving to be consistent in our product experience. That's, I think, the number one thing. If over many trips that a guest makes, or over many trips that a host accepts, we want certain level of consistency. We want it to be intuitive. So hence we built the platform that tries to best abstract out the nuances of a particular trip. Certain things vary, prices vary, fees vary, availability can change, but the experience of finding your car, getting into your car, and returning it back, that needs to be consistent. And when it's a marketplace, when it's individual owners doing it and locations which are unique, this adds a bit of complexity, but the product consistency helps us manage that. Besides that, there are many critical things that are critical in real time. We're talking about two individuals, needing to communicate when there's a challenge. The car breaks down, or usually that doesn't happen, but in case one of those things happen, you need to be able to have the guest and the host talk to each other. Making sure that the communication is delivered in real time. Communication is repetitive, and it's taken very critically. Is again parts of the platform that makes us unique.
I think what you're describing there is it's so interesting. I'm trying to reflect on other marketplaces and marketplaces that I like and marketplaces that I don't. For listeners who don't know, I worked on a marketplace myself for a little bit. I don't know if I liked it or not, but I'm done with it. So I feel like there's this perfect kind of sweet spot that is, just enough of the marketplace helping me feel like I'm, I don't know, in a safe place, like I'm comfortable there, right? Participating in that particular marketplace. There's like a sense of the brand and the consistency, as you're saying, like abstracting away the specific details, but then also being out of the way. So when I need to communicate directly with the person who, in this case, the host, that I have that direct line of communication. I don't feel like I'm being routed through a bunch of different hops and stuff. So it's like personal, but with a comforting, warm blanket of the brand sort of thing. Like, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's the thing that I'm thinking about that really I value there in that marketplace experience. Like, yes, I want to be able to,
Indeed,
to work with this host, but I want to know that, if anything should come up, there's some folks that can help me out in sort of getting through that.
Right. I think, if I think about it, there are certain things as a guest when you're booking a car, you try to make judgments using, you'll try to look for the reputation of the host, a reputation system that we built just that captures reviews and ratings, detailed ones, helps there, like any other marketplace, of course. You also look for engagement. You book a car, you send a message to the host that, hey, I booked your car. I'm going to show up, such and such time at your home or wherever the car is located, or I'd like to have the car delivered to my place. You expect engagement as a guest. And we have busy hosts. We have hosts with, 2, 3, 4, sometimes more cars. And it is important for us to provide them tools that at least demonstrate engagement. So, we build things like schedule messages, for example. I'm a host. When my car gets booked, a few minutes after the car gets booked, a personalized message from me lands on the guest messaging app, and that showcases engagement, and that has worked so well. I've seen my guests respond immediately to my message. I have a message that talks about my car, and how simple and humble the car is, and all that stuff. It's a less super simple car that I have on the platform, and I put it out there to learn from the experience, learn about the product, and to stay ahead in terms of bugs and stuff that I try to find. And every time a message gets delivered to the host, I get a really beautiful message back thanking me for the engagement, and those are the kind of things that we have to build to really shore up that trust, and the quality of the marketplace.
There was a secret little message in there that I think was super important that we haven't talked a lot about on the show, which is the importance of being the consumer of your own application to really understand and build the empathy, right?
Exactly.
CircleCI, I mean, unsurprisingly, we use our platform to deliver our platform sort of thing. But to
Absolutely.
really experience, when this doesn't work out, this is really frustrating, right? And sort of show up on a Monday and be like, okay, folks, let's sit and have a chat about this. Like, how can we do this better? How are there specific ways that's really helped you? Like having, also, I love the description humble for a car, but having your humble car, available and sort of working through the experiences yourself and seeing what's great about the experience and really building the empathy.
Absolutely. I think obviously to be leading engineering, one of the key goals that I have is to identify bugs before customers can identify from the platform. So that's one big reason, why I use the platform as well as a host. I've been using the platform as a guest way before I joined Turo. But the exposure that I get when I am immersed in the product, I think is unmatched. I build these opinions about the right way of creating a transaction, right way of enabling use cases, things that might appear to be not big of a gap when you're just building it around using it. It actually bubbles up a lot more when you're actually using your product. That's one big, I think, advantage I get. I use my own product. I have a point of view about it. I enjoy the success. I also know, this can be better. I go through the whole life cycle. I go through the happy paths and also the difficult ones. Basically, when there's an accident, I have to file a claim and all that stuff. And we have many, Turo employees in engineering who host for the same reason, and they don't mind making some good money on the side too.
That's a nice benefit. It's a nice benefit for sure. But right. I mean, I just love that message that's in there of, really building empathy with some of your customers, but also I think it leads to some creativity, right? Like
indeed,
when you're looking at the problem from the customer, like really in the shoes of the customer saying, oh, as I'm trying to use this, wouldn't it be great if I could do this? Or I bet I could make this a lot easier. This part was a little frustrating. And also, kind of going back to maybe not all the way to failure, but just even hypotheses or like, should we experiment with this? Should we experiment with that? Having a little bit better of an idea of even what area to go into, but B, saying, actually, it would be super awkward. Like, sure, we could learn something if we did this, but this would be really frustrating for our users. Right. So let's find another way to get that information, right? I think like that piece of empathy is super, super valuable. Indeed. There was another thing that you mentioned earlier, which is risk models, right? Depreciating assets, like different cars that exist and they've been around longer. What does that mean about whether they're appropriate for this type of booking, that type of booking? I spent a lot of time talking about risk in software delivery overall, and can people think about risk and cost trade-offs and stuff like that generally? But it sounds like it's a very, very core piece of
absolutely
of what you all are doing. And so, is that something that is kind of cultural throughout all of engineering? People are thinking about risk profiles all the time because it's so core to what you do, or is there like a specific group of folks that really kind of own risk modeling and help everybody else figure out how to do it? Or how does that work inside of Turo?
Yeah, not just engineering. It's core to our culture across the company. We clearly understood the significance of risk modeling, risk mitigation, and making sure that we think about making Turo sensible in terms of a unit economics perspective, a business model that is sensible from a unit economics perspective. We really understood that well when COVID hit us, in March of 2020. Business really tanked for that few weeks, and we were extremely nervous. We felt that we had to make we actually had to take some tough decisions, but a quick the direction that we took was the direction of making sure that we really shore up on our risk models. We really make sure that our unit economics is solid, and we spent a lot of time the next 6 months on really perfecting our data science models to identify and mitigate risk, and that helped us build these levers that that now drives us the profitability of the company, that drives the healthy unit economics of the company. And we talk about that across the board, and we talk about that across various use cases, features that we build, even like simple technical decisions that we make around like availability and downtimes, all that stuff. So it's core to the whole company, not just engineering. And COVID taught us a great lesson, and I'm glad to say that yes, we build all of that, assuming that it's going to be extremely tough for us for the next 12 to 24 months. But fortunately for us, and in general as well, local travel started. We built all these levers. Local travel started, in huge numbers, and it benefited us significantly. We were able to provide quality experience because of all our efforts to many customers out there. We were able to sustain as a business, and thrive afterwards.
Well, yeah, that's really fascinating in the sense that it was a cultural principle or core value that then really helped at a time when I think many organizations were struggling. I mean, there's a reason I'm talking about going on a road trip recently, right? Because we want to do something as a family, and we're still kind of like, I don't know if we really want to spend a bunch of time on a plane or whatever. So I'm still seeing that, people going camping, people going on road trips, all this sort of thing, which actually, fits really, really nicely into what you all are doing. So that's super cool.
Thank you.
So with that, as you think about, instituting that overall, like building that, is that something that you hire for? Like people as you go and look for engineers, it's like, can you think about this problem in the right way? Can you think about risk? Or is it something that is kind of part of onboarding, something that you expect people to learn when they join? Like getting people's heads around risk, and in particular, as we think about the overall context of failure, like I'll call it partial failure, right? It's not like everything's not just we were successful or we failed, but we thought the risk was this, and statistically, if we're over that line, then we're comfortable, and if we're under that line, then we need to adjust something. Like, is that something that you really had to grow and teach people, or are you able to find people who think in that way to build the business?
I think part of it, both to some extent, but when we hire there are 4 things we look for besides, skills. And these are, the core values of our culture. We look for, supportive nature of the individual who's a prospective tourist, as we call them. Down to earth, being down to earth, super critical for us. Efficient, being shows efficiency in how decisions were made, and other aspects of career development in the past that person has gone through, and pioneering. So supportive, down to earth, efficient, pioneering. These 4 values. I think we look for these 4 in every new hire that we try to hire, and obviously besides the skills. And that has helped us. Once a person who really can fit in our culture comes on board Turo, I think we've had great experiences that we've built together as a team because of just the consistency in the team that we have. Now consistency is not necessarily always good. We always want diversity of thoughts or whatnot. And, the pioneering aspect brings about some of that. We have a culture of being direct and honest. So back to hiring question, we don't necessarily look for a specific profile that can deal with, risk and has done in the past and can think about it that way. We look for these core, values. And we tend to hire people who, for certain roles have done this in the past. Like, there are roles in data side or the analytics side, some data science roles, where we basically want to have people who have seen the past. They have, they've seen some of these problem statements and can help us, know the unknowns basically. And so it's a mix of both, if I can say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, the one that sticks out is the pioneering, because it feels like if you're someone who really, I mean, I think of that almost like adventurous exploring. Like if you're willing to do that, then you're comfortable, maybe not with calculating risk, but at least with taking some risk, right?
Yes.
Like you have some affinity for risk to say, we're going to try something new and it's probably not going to work. Like we're going to have to try a few new things before we actually get somewhere that really drives the business. But if you don't go explore some of those spaces, you're never going to find the thing that's really like a winner or, a multiplier on the business.
Absolutely.
I really like that expression, pioneering.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very, tightly coupled with, in my view, retention. The aspect of pioneering, the aspect of, trying new things, taking risks into an engineering culture helps with, in my perspective, developer happiness. And the higher the developer happiness is, the better the retention is. It's tough for us to sell Turo at times, because we get compared with, the big ones out there, and, obviously, from various, perspectives like comp and stuff, at times it's challenging for us to, compete. But once the person decides to join Turo, these aspects of culture really help us a lot. Developer happiness really helps us with retention. We pay a lot of focus on just the fundamental, life in a day of a developer. What goes on, into building the software. What's taking time? What can we improve? How can we? Today we talked about velocity in getting, PRs reviewed, for example. And these are the topics we continue to look at. And we just want to make sure, that teams are having a fun time, working on software too.
Love it. I think the fulfillment that is possible in building software is not actually recognized by, like, there are so many horror stories of what organizations can be like that, once you've worked at a place like Turo, like where people are really paying attention to that, and we like to think that most of our customers are doing that, you kind of never go back. You're like, exactly. This is actually really fun. Like working on something, feeling, connected to the customer, being able to deliver quickly, get things out there, feel like I'm having an impact. That's, I think that's really, really exciting for for most engineers. So I'm gonna roll back to this pioneering concept though for a second, and taking risks and trying things. So as we wrap up in our favorite segment, the Red Build Rewind, I think like if you're a pioneering individual, you've probably run into a few exciting catastrophes in your lifetime. But can you share a story about a time that something didn't really go to plan, kind of felt catastrophic in the moment, but ended up teaching you, something useful that you've been able to carry with you since then?
I can, though it's the story is a bit different than, something that didn't go according to plan. There's this, a couple of years ago, we had a denial of service attack, and it was brutal. And we were not expecting it. We were like, who would attack us? We were still not necessarily the most known brand, at that time. And we were like, how do we, we were caught by surprise. We had, edge layer security that was there, but not sophisticated enough. And that was a wake up call for us. We were, just struggling to keep the site up. It was all hands on deck, of course, as you can imagine. And I think that was a wake up call for us. And, we were able to manage it, and we were able to get out of it in, I'd say 2.5, 3 hours. But that was one of the most nervous times I've ever had. We immediately, put together a plan to really shore up on our, edge security. We put together a plan on our security posture overall. We looked at, account takeovers, attacks like credential stuffing, fraud that happens on the platform. We deployed many things in the next, I'd say, 2 to 6 months that made these areas, I think it took these areas to the level which I feel very confident about now. Obviously, this is an area which we always continuously work on. When it comes to security, it's as everyone says, it's not about if, it's about when stuff goes wrong, and we know that we work on that posture. And that has been one area that was not something that we were paying deep attention on, but that day changed the game for us. So, and since then it's been a journey for us, and we've done a ton of stuff. Getting us much better in that space now.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those really interesting. Security overall is one of those really interesting spaces because we struggle. I think it actually goes back to risk modeling, right? It's very risk oriented in that it's not something that happens every day. It's not something that's like customers are complaining about this all the time or is like directly related to the customer experience. But you have to know these events are going to come up. And how do you think about being prepared? How do you think about investing the right amount? And certainly in those moments, you're like, there's a couple things, one, this is something that really matters, and here's some ways we can go about it. Two, thinking about, okay, how do we model this? But also that moment of focus that's like, yeah, we could solve this. Like, we don't, you're saying in a few hours, we were already moving forward in terms of, and sometimes it's nice to just have that focus, right?
Yes,
when something, feels terrible and you're like, well, at least this helped us prioritize a thing. And now we've got much better solutions and we'll sleep better at night, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So many things to take away from that. Secure. I'm just like, there's so many things that are hard to talk about in security, but you're just like, yep. I get it.
Absolutely. And then things like account takeover, for example, is an industry-wide problem. And there are so many ways people are trying to, find ways out, to take over an account. I think it is critical for any product out there, marketplace specifically, to really make sure that, they have sophisticated, technologies put in place to manage risks around account takeovers. It was a huge issue for us, and we focused. We spent, a few months of effort, and I think we are at a point where we feel very confident about this area, and we feel that, we have been able to secure our customers' account quite well.
Well, I think the other thing that's always been really important for me as a takeaway in security is you're never going to solve everything. I mean, it's kind of like everything else that we try to be perfect at, right? But getting to a place where you understand how to respond, in those sorts of situations, right? Going from no one would ever do this to us to, okay, we're a target like everybody else. Do we have the right people in place? Do we have a process to respond? Are we comfortable sort of rapidly reacting? All those sorts of things. It's as much about that, getting yourself into a good position where you understand, you can identify the problems and deal with them, as it is sort of having solved everything in advance, right? I mean, being perfect at everything. If we all strive to be perfect at everything, we'll be in a lot of trouble.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we are far from being perfect in this space, and we cannot be. The space evolves faster than, what you do to prevent stuff from going wrong, in this area. So, we're always, trying to improve. And things like these, when you're trying to invest in your platform for performance, for reliability, for security, for quality, you're always dealing with a conversation that's parallelly happening about features that you want to build for the customers. There's this constant tension about, let's add more features, let's provide more avenues, for our customers to book more cars. Let's improve top of the funnel. Let's improve our conversion. And these are very competing at times, conversations. As a company, though, I think we've reached a point where we really know that, when it comes to security, when it comes to uptime, when it comes to reliability, it's extremely critical. It's as important as, as any new feature for our customers. So that, I think, it makes me feel really good about where we are at Turo. From like the whole leadership is completely in sync about, how much these areas matter. And now we have, a roadmap that is fully dedicated towards these areas that continuously gets, planned for and built and executed on throughout the year.
Awesome. Love it. Well, great takeaway. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for joining. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today. If you enjoy the podcast, subscribe on your podcast provider of choice. If there's anyone you want to hear us talk to or anything you want to hear us talk about, find us on Twitter at CircleCI. Avinash, thanks again. It's been awesome. Great.
Thank you, Rob. It was fun. It was great talking to you.